In Fable Fortune, we've got a cooperative mode, which is something we're super excited about. There are no other digital CCGs on the market that are offering this feature, this gameplay mode, and it's something that we really enjoy playing. We think it's a great feature for us. It enables you to team up with a friend or somebody random online and to go and take on one of the legendary bosses from some of the previous Fable titles. So whether it be Nostro or Logan as well. And the way this works is quite simple. You go into, much like you would go into a PvP match, you pick your deck, you find your partner that you're going to play with. But this time you're both going to be on the same side of the board. And you're going to be able to see your partner's hands, and you're going to be able to see your hand. And then your opponent, they're going to be drawing cards from their deck.
The way the boss works is slightly different to a human player. They won't have a hand of cards, but they have a deck of cards. And they are able to play directly from their deck. So rather than limit our bosses by making them play exactly the same rule set as the player, because they're not a human player, we found the best way to create a consistent and interesting challenge is for them to be able to draw from this deck and always use their optimum amount of resources. Now this means they play at the level we want to play them. So we've actually got 3 difficulty levels. We've got easy, which is really you can just go in with the starter decks and have a fun challenge straight off the bat, turn on the game, boot it up, have your first game against a boss with a friend on easy level, and maybe scrape through kind of thing. Then you've got your medium level where you've played the game for a while, or you've just started, but you're an expert player. You've played a lot of CCGs, and you can probably take on medium, and if you're lucky, you might be able to get through. But then you've got expert level, and because of the way we built the game, because of the way the boss plays optimally when we choose it to, it doesn't cheat, but it does play cards of the costs associated in their deck. It will give you a real big challenge. It will be playing creatures at the optimum time in its gold ramp. And that means you've really got to work together, and you've really got to sit down with whoever you're potentially playing with and build decks with them.
I think that's one of the keys, is building decks together. I think as you go through the difficulty modes, it really becomes about how well you're then cooperating with your teammate and actually building those decks together. And I mean, a lot of the times we would even sit down and we will try and play through, end up losing, and you're like, okay, well, what didn't work? What can we change this time?
Why did you put the Bowerstone Bard in your deck?
I like the Bowerstone Bard. But you go back then and you modify your decks together so that you say, okay, well, if you drop that card, I'll add this one into mine, and then maybe we'll be able to combo that better together. And you come up with these strategies to try and take on that co-op boss. And the good thing is because it is somewhat similar every time you're playing through, you know roughly what they're going to do, which...
You can start planning.
Yeah, you know which cards they've got in their deck, and you start building up those plans. There's a communication system built in, so you can ping cards and units when it's not your turn, which is a great way to help learn how to play. Certainly Mike uses a lot when I'm playing. But it is actually something that, for somebody that's not that experienced with CCGs, it's a great way to learn and actually to get better at the game without having that feeling of you're constantly losing while you're trying to get better.
And that's one of the things we want to do within closed beta. We want to get people playing that system. We want to find out what kind of ways they can ping the board and really help each other, and basically create a communication system within the game, because a lot of people don't want to come straight into a game and go straight to voice chat and start talking to people they don't know. So if we can, with you, come up with a different system of communication within our game, then that would be fantastic. But we need to work out what that is, and we need to trial out different systems. So at the moment we've got like a little breadcrumb trail, it's obviously very similar to Fable in the past. You can explain to the other player, attack this unit with this unit. And that's the kind of basics we've got in place, but if we can really improve that, then hopefully people can play cooperatively without always having to be on voice chat.
I think one of the other nice features about co-op is that the rewards are based on which heroes you've used to complete the challenge. So it gives you the opportunity to go and play with all the different heroes, and you're not just focused on building, one deck with one class. That's all you're focused on.
Again, that was really important in the design of the co-op system. So I've played some CCGs out there, and you'll get a challenge to take on, and you'll build one deck, and you'll actually go, I'm just going to use the basic deck I always use, I've always played the same character. And invariably, you can get through most of the games with that. So you don't really do any deck building. And it sort of defeats the object of that challenge. So with ours, we have 8 different styles of champion you can play. So to get the top rewards in each of our co-op bosses, you've got to beat the co-op boss with every different champion. And that's a really interesting challenge, because some of the classes you're going to be really familiar with and really enjoy, and you'll be taking on at expert level. Other ones you won't be so confident in, it'll be medium, and maybe there's a couple in there that you're like, damn it, I'm only managing to finish this on easy. Yeah. And that's a really interesting choice, because what level do you go in with each of the decks? And then again, the top prizes are for those players who are able to smash it on expert, but you're going to have to find people to match with, because if you're playing as the knight, maybe the best person to play with the knight's the gravedigger, but maybe if you're playing the alchemist, you should be playing with the merchant. So it's very much, how do you take on these bosses with each of the characters? Because again, each of the bosses play so differently that each of your champions are stronger or weaker against each boss. Yeah. So when you're up against Nostro in the graveyard, the Gravedigger is actually a really good matchup. She has a lot of very fast, small units. She doesn't mind if they die so much. But then she's not very good in some of the other locations where the creatures you're fighting are much bigger. Her Hollow Men are getting smashed to pieces, by the bigger creatures. So again, it's really depending on where you're playing, different strategies come into place, and therefore different decks come into place. And again, that comes back, going to keep reiterating, there's no best deck for our game. There's good decks for different situations, but there's so many different situations. You're always learning, you're always finding out new things, you're always experimenting.
Because within our co-op, you know that you're going to want to try and build out really good decks with all the classes. So when you open up packs of cards, you're excited when you get any card. Yeah, you always want all those cards coming in there. So you're not just focused on one sort of class. You really want to go and try and build a well-rounded decks for everything.
But it's even more than that. Some cards are better in co-op than they are in single player. Yeah. And obviously there's lots of cards which are better in single player than in co-op. But you'll get a card and you'll go, I don't know if actually that will go really good in this co-op deck or against this boss. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to design in this game, is that we don't want any cards that just fundamentally aren't very good. There's no point. Every card you open in a pack should be interesting, should be useful in at least one situation. Yeah. And if it's not, we'll be looking at that as we're going through beta. We'll be working out how do we change the rules on the card or the stats, because we want the feedback. We want, great players to come in and help us, because you can help us make sure that the game is balanced.